wanted to go over the card support module that Spacemandev and Norc have been working on. At a high level, this has support for deck of cards and player hands. First of all, you're going to need to go download it. You can search for it by searching card support. Unofficial, it's this one. Currently, it's version 1.1.0, and I suggest checking for update often as we're adding new stuff to it all the time. And go ahead and click install. I already have this installed, so I'm not going to do that. Then let's create a new world. Call it card support to play around with. I'm just going to use a simple world building system, but it's system agnostic, so you can use any system you like. And then we're going to go ahead and log in. First thing I'm going to do is create a scene for us to play around in, just a tabletop. And then we're going to go ahead and switch on the card support module. The first thing it's going to do is actually going to import the standard deck. So UI notifications, just give it a second, click through, and if you give it like 5 seconds and you just control F5, they'll go away. One thing you'll notice is under journal entries, you'll have a new folder called decks, under which you'll have this 54 card deck. If we drag this onto the board, it's going to go ahead and create a deck tile for us. To interact with this, we're going to need to be on the tile controls layer. This down here is going to be your player hand. This is where the cards are going to show up. You can go ahead and click that button to make it show up. If you're on the tiles layer and you right click on this HUD, you will get these options. We'll go bottom up first. The bottom option is the view deck option. You'll be able to see how many cards you want to view. For example, if you want to view the entire deck, it's going to show you the max number that you can view. But say you had something that say, look at the top 3 cards, you could do just 3. And it would show you in the order. So this would be the first card, second card, third card. If you want to view all of them, we can view all of them. A couple things to note. You have 2 options with any card here. You have the take and take as copy. The take option will give you the card and remove it from the deck. So you'll notice the deck now has 53 cards. The take copy option, will take it as a copy and leave the original card in the deck as well. So you'll see all the space still there. Discard them, and if we discard them, they'll show up on the discard pile, which is the second option. The discard pile looks very much like the view deck pile, except it has 2 more options for us: burn card and return to top of deck. If we return it to top of deck, it'll do exactly as it mentions, and we'll go back. And now there are 54 cards again in the deck. It has returned it to the top of the deck. If we burn the card, it will be removed from the discard pile, and it will be just gone. Now, say we do something and we work the deck. For example, let's take a bunch of cards here. Let's take 4 or 5 cards, and we're going to discard them all. This little discard button lets you discard your entire hand. They'll show up here. And let's say we burn all of these cards. So now, the deck only has 48 cards. Well, how do we get it back to its original state? To get it back to its original state, we just have to hit the reset deck option. When you set the reset deck option, it will reset it to the original state, including the order that the cards were in, and now we have our 54 cards again. If we want to shuffle the deck, we can hit the shuffle option. We can shuffle it a couple times if we're really paranoid, and you'll now see that the cards are shuffled. Another thing we can do is we can actually draw to the table. So if we select 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 cards and we select draw to table, it'll actually draw the cards to the table that we wanted. While the cards are on the table, the cards themselves have a HUD as well. So if we right click on the card, it'll allow you to take the card into your hand. It'll let you flip the card over, and it'll let you discard the card. And then if we go to the discard pile, that card will show up there. Another thing we can do is if we're holding Alt while we drag a card to the tabletop, it'll actually play it flipped. If we don't play Alt, if we take this card and we just drag it normally, it'll play the card normal. So we want to make sure if we want to play the card face down, you're holding Alt. Let's go ahead and delete these cards and reset our deck to its original state. Cool. A couple other things I want to show you are in the settings. If you go to configure settings, and you'll be able to change a bunch of stuff about the hand. One thing that you can change is drawing the cards face up. So right now, by default, when you draw a card, it's drawn face up. But what if I want to draw cards face down? I don't want to know what card I have in my hand. Go ahead and save that, save changes. And now when I draw a card, you'll notice that the card is actually face down. I don't know what it is. I have to right-click it and flip the card to see the card. If I want to change the size of the card that gets played onto the table, I can change the card ratio. Maybe I want to make the cards really big. I can go ahead and save that. Save changes. Let's draw a card. And let's play this to the table. And you notice it played a massive card. So these are just some of the things that you can do with the deck option. So this does use the standard deck that we have included. But what if you want to create your own deck? In part 2 of this video, I'll go over how to create your own deck. Okay, so say you want to create your own deck to import. What is SDF? Well, SDF stands for Standard Deck Format. It's a format that we use to not just talk about the image that is associated with the card, but any data that we want as well. And we can see what an SDF format looks like by actually going into the sample directory and seeing the deck.yaml and images. YAML is just a file type, and all the images of the cards are in the images folder. You'll see this is what the standard deck is. If we open up the deck.yaml, which I have open on the right, you'll see that the file is actually pretty simple. It has a couple of entries, name, SDFV, image, back, data, and this 3- line that denotes the end of the file and the start of the next one. So we have basically a list of cards that make up the deck. And we zip that together. We'll see if we look up the 54 card deck. All this is the images and the deck.yaml. That's all the SDF file is. To make our own, let's go and see how we want to do that for the Power deck, for Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. So this is a deck you can purchase from Peg Inc. They're the publishers of Suede, and it just goes into the different powers that you might be able to get. Well, how would I turn this into a deck that I could use in Foundry? Well, let's go ahead and make a new folder. We'll call it Images. We'll put that in the Power folder. We're going to go ahead and copy all of these image files. We're actually going to put this in the Images folder. And now we're going to create a new file. We're actually not going to make it a text file. We need to make it a YAML file. So if we save as, I'm going to quickly, this is just where I have it. You can have this wherever. Save it here. We want to save it as deck. And instead of save as type, instead of .text, we want to do all types. And then at the end, type in YAML, save, deck.yaml. And we can basically copy the format we have here. Let's start with just copy pasting the first one here. The first card we want is Power Cards 1. So we can actually call it, instead of Power Cards 1, maybe we want to give it a name. So this is Arcane Protection. Arcane Protection. SDF we 0.6. We're going to have this be the same for everything. The image file is actually called Power Cards 01.png. The back for this is actually Power Cards back. I'm going to go ahead and put underscores in it. Sometimes there are errors if there are spaces. Other times it works out okay, but just to make sure that we don't run into any problems, we're going to put some spaces in there, or some underscores, Power Cards back.png. And if we want to have some data value, we can. We don't need to, so we're going to leave that out for now. And this is an SDF file. We have the first one there. And if we leave it as is, and we zip these up, say add to archive, power.zip, we have a valid one-card deck. And if we go into Foundry, and we SDF import, let me go find this power.zip, and we import it, it'll go ahead and import Arcane Protection for us as a deck. And we can see it, we can play around with it just as we saw. Now, this is not that fun, it's only one card, but all we have to do to add more cards to this is do a -- name, and let's add another file in. What's the second one? Second one is Banish. So let's do Banish, SDFV, 0.6, image, Power Cards, 2.png, back. We want the same back as the other one. And that's it. Let's go here. We'll delete the old one. We will zip it again. Just standard old zip file. I use 7-zip, but you can use Windows Explorer, whatever you want to do to create a zip file. Let's go here. We're going to delete this deck. Let's import it again. There we go. Now we see the two cards there. And let's actually show you something cool. So if we take a card, you'll notice that right now we actually have a setting to draw as back. Let's draw face up. See if it changes. But here's the card. And if we flip it over, this is a back that it came with. So we can specify the card front, card back, and have it all be done programmatically. Yeah, this is a little bit more developer-facing than it is user-facing. In a future release, we'll add a UI inside of Foundry for you to be able to append cards so you don't have to write these SDF files. But right now, that is the way to do it. And it's pretty easy to write. If you have any questions about SDF files, this process is working for you, it's frustrating, please feel free to reach out to Spacemandev or Norc on the Foundry Discord. And I'll have our Discord will not go for you yet.